Clash has a problem. Well, it has a couple, but I want to talk about two for you today. We're going to talk about the final point and the first point, and we're actually going to start with the final point. So I'm going to be on Hanaoka now, but this definitely applies to both Hanaoka and Throne of Anubis. Basically, you should never attempt to take these points. That's kind of the long and short of it. They are extremely defensible for the defenders here. The spawns are extremely close to the point, but they're also extremely close to where you can get value initially, right? You can walk out these doors and you already have a good view on the point. So you're already a threat once you get here, right? And then also the addition of wave respawns has really made it pretty difficult, especially if you are staggering people out after the first point. You get to this point and all of a sudden everyone's here already. And they have a much more formidable defense because there's not really any good place for the attackers to even hold here, right? Basically, at this point, once you get here, there is basically no reason to take it, right? It is never worth to use ults here because the success rate is very low. You're just going to skew your ult economy super duper hard. And even with the changes that they made to Clash, where you have like 3 ticks that you have to take, it still doesn't feel very good. It still doesn't work very well. And even with that, like even getting 1 tick is extremely hard sometimes because it's much more likely they will kill you and your respawn is way further back than theirs are. It is kind of crazy, I'm not gonna lie. So basically, what do we do, right? How do we fix this? What are some ideas that I have? Well, the easy one is that here, just on this map type completely, honestly, remove wave respawns. I think it makes fights just continue to happen and happen and happen. And I really just am not a fan of these fights never ending and your team always just kind of bleeding out because you don't have the spawn advantage and the other team really does. It is very skewed, especially in some of these. Like this is extremely skewed because you don't, not only do you not have spawn advantage, you don't even have positional advantage. You really have no advantages here. It's extremely hard. So I think removing wave respawns, at least having people come in and out and not having actual like team fights or like hit squads that come in and just take one out and make you bleed dry, that would definitely work. But I also want to talk about something else here. Look at this spawn room. It's so close to where you actually exit. If there was any way to expand both of these spawn rooms further back so that I mean, I can't even show you exactly, but if you spawned like behind this wall and you had to walk a little further, that would definitely help a lot with keeping people away from the point and giving the attackers a little bit more breathing room. Now, it's not going to help so much that once the fight is going and you're in like this, you know, downward spiral of just trying to win, the rate that people come back is going to be the same. But at least initially, trying to get to this point, it'll definitely help. I think that is something that they should look into because right now these spawn rooms are just so small, right? Think about Flashpoint. In Flashpoint, you spawn at the way back of those spawn rooms, and they've had to add a speed boost to those to make you to make you get to the point faster. They should make those the rooms as big as Flashpoint rooms if they really want to solve this problem. But also, my other solution is I want to talk about what I'm going to call the 6-tick solution. Now, I already talked about it, but once you get to this final point, there are 3 ticks. They each have a point. Like they're all worth 1 point, right? If you are 5-0ing, you would need to take all 3 of them to finish the map. If not, you'll need to basically, you know, the success is permanent. So once you get the 3rd tick, then you only need, you know, 2 of them. If not, you know, if you get pushed all the way back, like I'll give you an example, right? You come in, you take 1, 2, and you take 1 tick on 3rd, right? Then you go back, you lose. They take this point again. Then you take that one. Now you only need 1, right? I actually don't think that you're really making any substantial progress, right? It doesn't actually help. It doesn't fix the problem of like trying to take the point, right? It's all 1 tick, right? It doesn't matter, right? It's either you get the point or you don't get the point. So why would you ever attack this? So why not divide each tick into subsections, right? So if you get halfway through a tick, then you get to keep that progress no matter what, right? That way there is at least some incentive to push up and some pressure on the enemy to touch the point, because it's like, now you have actually gained something substantial, progress towards a point that may actually be worthwhile, at the very least, to put pressure on this point and to actually want to touch it, right? So think about this scenario, right? Attacking team takes the first point, right? Then they take the second point. They're up 2-0. Now they come here and they take half of a tick, right? And they lose. So now it's 2 points to, I'm going to say 2.5, right? We'll call it a fifth of a point, even though it's not going to, like, on scoreboard, it wouldn't do that. But it's 2.5 to 1, right? Then they take this point, and now it's 3.5 to 1. And then they take another half tick, and now it's 4 to 1, right? Now there is, like, legitimate pressure and, like, purpose into getting this point, right? Instead of it at this point being 3 to 1 or whatever it would be, it's actually, you actually have an advantage here, like a legitimate advantage, right? It passively allows more progress and actively encourages you to get to a point, right? You actually make real progress towards 1 point for the rest of the total, right? So you have less fights you have to win. I think that could be a really good, like, interesting dynamic there. The attackers are encouraged to actually come to point in a meaningful way, and it also makes the defenders a little bit more pressure to be like, hey, we actually make something happen here. We don't have to wait until we're all here. Like, there's a possibility they're going to take it. So maybe it's worth for 3 or 4 of us to go in while we're not all ready. I think that would be a really good way to middle ground it. Now, I also would remove some of the cover from defenders, because I feel like it is way too defensible. They can come from anywhere and take any angle on you. Maybe add some cover on the attacking point. Like, I think this is a little ridiculous, just how little the attackers get to work with here. I think it is actually crazy that there's just nowhere to go, nothing to play around. They're always going to be playing into a disadvantage here. It just does not feel good at all, right? All right, so that's the first point. Now you may be thinking to yourself, you know, what if with those solutions, right? Like, it's just going to give the first team who wins too much power, right? It's like if you win the first fight, you're going to snowball it. As it stands right now, I've seen this criticism, and I kind of agree with it. That if you win the first fight, you're actually more likely to lose the game, it feels like. I'll give you an example, right? So let's say we win this neutral fight, right? I think that's really important, right? When you first get here, this is a neutral fight, right? You go in, you go take this point. Now you're here first. The other team is spawning. It's very fast. You get to set up. You take this point, right? So now you're 2-0. Then you try to take this point. Ah, damn. Well, they got us. It's 2-1. We're going to go back. And then they get the defenders high ground. They actually get a much better high ground when they come here. So they're actually much more likely to win this point. So now we're 2-2, right? Okay, that's fine. But the problem is that when we go back to neutral, this attacking team gets to come up and take the aggressive position. This is now no longer a neutral point. This is for the attacking team. So it's much more likely that they win. Okay, now we go to this point. Same thing happens when you win the neutral point first. Now you're in a much better spot to deny this high ground, and you win this one. The score is now 4-2. And what that means is that it gives the team that lost the first fight a lot more room to pick what point that they want, right? If they have full ult advantage, they'll let them take this point and just super hard prevent them from taking this one. Or if they're really concerned, right, they can go all the way back to neutral, right? You probably wouldn't take the last one because we just talked about how the last one is so bad. But they can go all the way back to neutral with all of their ults and keep this positional advantage, right? Because this is supposed to be neutral, but whoever has control always has the advantage, right? It's a little different from where we have control here, but they have the high ground. So it actually ends up being a little more neutral in that regard. it's different on the actual the actual point C, right? It can skew really bad. It's really hard. And obviously not every game plays like that, but it can happen really often where it actually just feels like you get to a disadvantage if the team plays, if you won the first point and the other team kind of recognizes that, right? So basically, like, how do we fix this, right? This is such a weird problem. Well, I actually think the solution might come from, one, either making it so that the enemy team can properly set up neutral again. Maybe you let them spawn here for a couple of seconds so that they're actually here and ready to, like, make a neutral fight, right? Because the other team will be pushing in and you have this weird clash. Then it might be too fast and you might not be ready for it, but some way for them to prevent them from completely setting up so you actually have that neutral again will make it feel a lot more fair, at least in my opinion. Or what you actually could do is that you make this a little more neutral so that when you're trying to attack from this side and they're set up, you actually end up going into a neutral fight here rather than, you know, this losing team just gets this insane high ground position for free, right? You're actually instead pushing into a much more neutral area. That might actually prevent the reverse snowballing from happening a little more. But I'm not sure. I think this is a much harder problem to solve than the final point solution, if I'm being honest with you. That's kind of those are kind of like my two big problems with Clash. I don't think this game mode is unsalvageable. I think it feels really rough right now, mainly because we've been playing it a lot. They've bumped the pick rates of these maps, so we've had to play it a lot in competitive and quick play. And maybe you guys are a little sick and tired of it because there's only 2 maps, and that is a whole different problem that I've talked about at least in the past, and I'm not going to go into here. But yeah, I think Clash definitely does have potential. It's really weird, and I think it is a nice, it's a weird change of pace, but it does feel a little improperly imbalanced. And I also want to talk, now that we're here, I think the general changes that they made were good. I think the final point having 3 ticks was a bit of a failure of design, as we talked about earlier, but I think them just having the potential to retouch was the right option, because it felt like you took the point and that was it, and that's what caused the snowballing. With the wave respawns, I think it exacerbates it, and it makes it too wishy-washy and too weird. But yeah, I think that Clash is on its way. I do think that the criticisms we had of it were, what's it called? They were heard and they were addressed, but they also added more things to this game mode that didn't quite work with those changes that they made. I think it was a bit of too much going on at one time. But yeah, that's my thoughts there on Clash. Let me know in the comments what you think of this game mode. Do you think it's fun? Do you not like some of these maps? Let me know. Like and subscribe while you're at it. I do really appreciate it. Thank you. This was streamed live twitch.tv/Lane Hemingway. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays is when I stream. I always try and do a discussion every single time I go live. And if you want to join my Discord down below, give me a hot take, give me a rework idea, just talk to people generally about this game, you are welcome to do so. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a good day.